This is the third video of Masculine Archetype series, and today we are going to talk about Magician Archetype. First, we will look at positive expressions of this archetype, and in the second part of video we will look at negative expressions of this archetype. If the king is the one who gives orders and makes decisions, then warrior is someone who executes these decisions and orders. Then magician is the one who really thinks through and guides decision maker to make the best decisions and to implement the best actions. So magician, in one essential word, could be described as wise man or a guide. So magician is someone who knows things. He knows information, he knows the theory, he also knows technology, how to put information and theory into practice. Magician is discoverer. He's inventor of all sorts of things. Magician is also like an alchemist, not just material one, but also spiritual one, the emotional one, who transforms himself through deep insights, through self-observation into greater wisdom and knowledge. Also, through this alchemy, magician initiates himself into not just self but others into greater maturity. In ancient communities and some of the modern day communities and tribes, you could say the magician archetype belongs to a group of shamans and healers who know how to address misfortune of certain groups or individuals and also restore back the wholeness to them. Magician archetype is all about self-knowledge, which was one of the key things to Gnostics. And yeah, so it's all about self-awareness. It's about self-reflection, introspection, going inside deep to access that deeper hidden truth about self. Magician is someone who guides the process of transformation, and magician has to be really masterful and skilled to do this the right way, because if the energies are not controlled properly, then, for example, revealing too much energies to the initiates or other people that magician is working with can basically destroy their psyche. And here's an example. For example, in therapy, if a therapist doesn't know how to properly hold sacred divine space for his patient, then he can re-traumatize or cause even bigger trauma to the patient, because psyche is not ready for that amount of energy to be processed. Magician is like initiator of others. He helps others to initiate into more maturity, into some hidden or higher knowledge, to access other levels of life, you could say. For example, professor helps students to learn stuff and to also later in their life or career access the positions that they were preparing themselves for. Magician archetype, when he initiates others, it's not just telling everything others that need to do, but he also holds space so others can learn through themselves, for themselves, in their own way. That's even more masterful. Not just to be purely instructed. And magician archetype is not only responsible for guiding others, but before he becomes this true wise guide, magician archetype was also once an initiate, and he was also a learner and a seeker of knowledge, next level knowledge that would give him access to greater positions in life or roles. So magician archetype is also the one who is active, and you could say he also promotes investing time, money, energy into learning new skills, information, preparing self for the future role. So he initiates himself into future higher roles, into society, into life, through investing resources in his own personal growth. Magician is someone who, through his deep practices and increasing awareness, he sees patterns that are not obvious to others. He uncovers these hidden, deeper patterns. He understands the deeper dynamics of larger universe, bigger picture. So typical professions of a magician would be like an advisor, like a consultant, like a coach, spiritual teacher, and others, but not only those. Yeah, so magician archetype, he works with energies. He's like an energy worker. So esoterics, ancient practices, knowledge, also sometimes occult things, and channeling different consciousnesses, entities, is not unknown to magician. One of the moments when we can also experience or observe magician archetype into action is during times of crisis or potential death scenarios. For example, if there is very dangerous situation that, for example, a car crash could end up a person's life. Suddenly in that moment, person is taken over for a brief period of time by his or her magician archetype, who knows exactly what to do in those milliseconds of time. It's like higher intelligence suddenly makes the right moves to save the person so he doesn't get killed, or other crises situations. Magician archetype is also responsible for observing ego, so he, in this regard, he functions in multiple ways. One of the ways is he regulates the inner balance between other archetypes, so one does not overwhelm the other, but there is a healthy balance between different archetypal energies. So they are complementary and beneficial to each other, not one trying to dominate or suppress the other. By being an ego observer, magician archetype also functions as to deflate egos when the ego is like too big or too high, to land them back on the ground. Humble them. Magician is like a bullshit detector. He sees through lies and illusions and self-deception as well. That's why he's so valuable as a guide, as a advisor. We really need them in this world, not to fuck it even more than it is right now. We really need to tap into our own magician archetype in this time. And magician's sharp discernment helps in times, sometimes other people who have gone astray to come back to their reasoning and their senses. So he's a good like accountability. He might not always say the things that are pleasing to others, but magician, he keeps it real, how it is, what needs to be, he says what needs to be heard, not what others want to hear. Another way how magician functions powerfully as an observer of ego is he carefully, without judgment, observes like own emotions within us, so they are not repressed but they are contained as raw energy, and through observation this energy can then later be transmuted from like this raw energy to something very very beneficial. This emotion can be transmuted to healthy expression that can serve as a driving force to some good changes in life. For example, anger can be transmuted into very practical, very good driving force for specific actions to be taken that can translate later into good results or projects being realized that previously or before where this energy were repressed within our body and we were burned from the inside by not addressing it, by not transforming and or transmuting it. So this is also how magician can help us to work with our own energies. And some people argue that right now we're having this increasing how do you say confusion of gender identity and personal identity, because people haven't tapped in and are lacking magician's archetype energy in certain areas of their life. It's about knowing thyself. These were the positive expressions, positive traits, qualities of magician archetype when it's in its fullness, in a healthy, matured form. Now let's look at the negative forms of magician archetype, and there are in generally two forms. One is manipulator and the other one is the innocent one. So manipulator is all about censorship, is all about propaganda, is hiding vital information from others, and instead of guiding others, manipulator is directing others in a direction that others cannot fully see. One of the ways how manipulator works is he withholds vital information from the benefit of others. For example, there is a doctor who doesn't tell the full story to his patient, what would help him or her to recover better or to get healed, so the patient can keep come to the doctor and pay money. And a lot of times also these manipulators charge inadequately high sums of money for little bits of information. Another way is that these manipulators pretend that they know how to help their patients, or they know what they're doing, when in reality they're not. So they're basically like a charlatans or like frauds. And another way how manipulators withhold information is there are small circles of elite that hoards all the vital, all the crucial information, knowledge to themselves, but they of course don't cover it to the larger masses, so they can only enjoy benefits for themselves. So they are detached, they are lying, they are cynical, they hurt themselves and others. What manipulators do is they think too much, they are cut off from their natural joy, they never fully engage in life, they avoid life, they are lost in never-ending contemplation, they are afraid to live. And by fearing to make the wrong decision, manipulator makes none. And by withholding themselves from other people in life, they feel isolated and lonely. The second negative form of magician shadow expression is the innocent one, or the naive one, who he wants power and status, but he doesn't want to take responsibility. The innocent one doesn't want to share, he doesn't want to teach, he doesn't want to become a great holder of sacred space. He's also not interested into becoming familiar with himself. He doesn't want to know himself. And he is also not interested into investing energy into becoming a great energy channeler and container. And while he perceives himself as too good to make a personal effort, he's also at the same time blocking others to become better. The innocent one acts as a deflator of our egos when it's not necessary, but actually is harmful to us. His motivations also derives from the envy of those who act, those who take action, those who share, those who are growing. The innocent one's accumulated so-called expertise is accumulated for the purpose to cover his own lifelessness, his own irresponsibility to the world. And often they are denying and dishonest, and with their mask of innocence they manipulate us to question our own intuition, our own reasoning, our own common sense, and they try to shame ourselves through this, that we were wrong in the first place to confront them for their wrongdoings. What also happens in the case of innocent one is that when he's active, then we feel that we cannot trust our thinking, and we feel overwhelmed because we are very sensitive and dependent on outside pressures. We feel like we get pulled like a leaf in the wind in all different directions, and we are not centered. When innocent one is active, it also means that we're not able to detach our ego, our observer, from our own emotions, and we get overwhelmed by them. We get sucked into them, into our emotions and problems. We cannot detach from them, separate from them. And the innocent one also acts passive-aggressively, but he will of course act as innocent as He will pretend that he doesn't know what we're talking about. These were the traits and qualities and expressions of negative or wounded or immature forms of shadow magician archetype that shows up in our life. It's very beneficial to know how they express themselves positively and negatively, so we can become increasingly aware when that happens in our life, and then we can, oh yeah, now that's happening. And when we become more aware, then we can stop the momentum. We can again observe ourselves better. We can detach from that. We can step out from that. We can transcend that because we shine the light to that. And that's a key feature of healthy magician archetype energy that is very valuable to us on our daily lives. I hope that you found this third episode of Masculine Archetype series valuable, and as always, I will see you in the next video, and have a great week full of wise insights that serve you well and that propel you to grow into your life. Let the magician archetype be present in your life when you need it.